topic they gave me is a mouthful. Managing a 21st century university, knowledge skills, quality assurance, and roles of university councils and administrators. Well, the role of university council, the job is that the council has all the powers to run the university. The only thing the council cannot do is to turn man into woman. They think you could. But at the same time, you are supposed to be at the forefront of innovation and creativity. On one hand, you are conservative. On the other hand, you are supposed to be promoting the creativity and innovation. And also, taking this tag, I could see some creativity that because on both sides, most of the time when they give you the right information on one side, and they think we be talking about this one, either way, you know, it shows creativity. So from what the registrar was kind enough to send to me, and the team of this retreat has also emphasized by the co-chancellor is a new strategic direction to inspire and reposition the Rivers State University for excellence and creativity. So I think all of us can relate to this to show the distribution of Rivers University. The main reason why we have 311 universities, so 75 of them federal, and if we have 36 states, that's average of 2 federal universities per state. For a long time, I assume that University of Nigeria also that they have always been insisting on 200 marks in JAM for UTLA. They can now discover that if University of Nigeria also they lower the benchmark to 160. Instead the provision of teaching for our students, to provide teaching for your students, and the contribution of original research by our staff. Our most important duties. Aiding for undergraduates, they are well taught. And your faculty are also able to do good research. What else? Maybe these days now, people like Professor Ajenda, then say you have to do commercialization. That's the third bullet. New science-led solutions to societal problems, new products. The teaching of the next generation of students is fundamental. Then you have to generate market-ready students. We are not so much interested in the past. It's not just enough that your university has been established 60 years ago, who cares? But you are producing the students for the present and the future. The students are not going, if this is 2025, your graduates of this year are not going to work in 2024. They start working maybe this year or subsequent years. So you have to be at the cutting edge. Your faculty and staff, the students, because they are already at the hope of getting a degree 4 years, 5 years, depending on the program. The alumni, who are your graduates? In fact, the best way you can measure whether a university is doing very well is what are the graduates doing. I'm sure there are also former students of Rivers State University who are doing very well, but the more the number of students from your university that can do well, that can excel. That's why my countrymen, when they go to Harvard for 1 week, they say they are alumni of Harvard. They won't mention you again. Somebody must think about it, which is what council has already done. And you have to set the agenda for development. The vice chancellor cannot have a separate vision from that of the university. For him, it's how to implement it. But the rest, just like I mentioned, the issue of arguably the most important thing the university does, enabling all of its core activities to be optimally achieved. It involves a thorough knowledge of the institution's present strengths and weaknesses. I mean, there must always be strengths and weaknesses, but we are not going to bemoan our faith. They have to make choices. But what is more important is the future. But at least we are in 2026. So where we want to be at the end of the tenure of the vice chancellor. Like I mentioned, the university is a growing concern. So 30 years, 40 years, the university will still be here. So the future is probably more important. Good analysis and intelligent choices will ensure the exploitation of opportunities, the avoidance of disaster, and improved reputational position. A sound, well-expressed strategy will encapsulate the student's self-identity, gather business, and win friends. Well, is this the university and the same thing with other research and development institutions. Thanks for the lecture for your kind attention.
So my job is basically simple, to talk about the implementation of the plan. A robust interactive session with the entire university community went on early last year, where we called for memoranda submissions from across the entire university, all the different planning units. We did a full SWOT analysis, environmental situation analysis, and identified 6 major issues that the Rivers State University has to deal with over the next 5 years. There are opportunities for collaborative research and development, urgent need for consolidation of our satellite campuses and youth programs, and also several challenges mitigating against. It looks like a small sentence, but it's huge. And under this, we have several strategic objectives and activities, clusters of activities that we intend to accomplish over the next 5 years, beginning with 2026. Now, in 2026, if we look at items 1.1 to 1.3, we're commencing with those almost immediately. Conduct robust organizational review, develop a new organizational structure, and implement the changes. Few commencing in 2026, but the heavy items 2027, where we do the planning before we get there. So for instance, items 2.4 to 2.6, a lot of the things are ongoing. Some are ongoing until 2030 itself. But 4.1, conduct curriculum review workshops, upgrade curriculum and obtain NUC approval of modified academic programs, that's priority. Host accreditation visits from NUC and other regulatory and licensing bodies. Activities are listed under the goals, so goal number 1 to 4, the activities and the cost implication. So we're hoping that in the year 2026, we need to find at least 28.4 billion of this 110. That's not too much money. If the university commits to 50% of it, and the government commits to another 50, we're lucky. If the university commits to 40% of it, and through friends, we're trying to raise 20%, all we're trying to raise is maybe 5.2 million outside, right? A billion, I mean. So we've tried to, in the implementation, break it down to say, over the next 5 years, this is what the expenditure profile would look like. What can we do to increase internally generated funds? How can we go out and look for our friends, our alumni? So in summary, to fully implement this plan, we need to source the funds. Let's not worry about 2027, 28, and 30. Let's worry about 2026. Let's try and raise 28 billion. Thank you very much.
This is trying to put some flesh on the bone of what we had this morning from the former Vice Chancellor of UI and Professor Yes, that spoke on strategic plan. The panelists are already seated. So, immediate past Vice Chancellor Okogwili, I think that's the name. Good. Now we want your perspective on how this University Council can assist in that concluding statement of the strategic plan presentation.
And then that means that the Governing Council must recognize its own sphere of authority, and then the management must also know its own area of authority. That way, you minimize conflicts in the system. That's the first thing. And when we have that understanding, as I think we have now, it will help to achieve all that we have outlined in the strategic development plan. And the second thing I just want to chip in is the question of regulation. It's always important to recognize that as much as it's good to regulate even the universities, the way they function, we must be careful not to have a situation where we over-regulate it. Because the problem of over-regulation is that you end up colonizing the life world of the university system. The university system is founded on autonomy. The university should be able to control their affairs, regulate the academic activities in a way that will promote learning and research. Now, talking about the funding challenge, yes, it's a very serious one, particularly for Rivers State University. Initially, and I think Professor Chinebu will attest to that, we used to have support from the Rivers State government on a quarterly basis. But over the years, that has since been stopped. And as Vice Chancellor, we never received 1 naira from the River State government, apart from the fact that the River State government will pay our salaries and all that. And then when they decide, they also run some programming, some projects. The university, must recognize that times are changing. The funding is limited. People are wary about where to put their funds. But with the kind of interaction that will generate that interest, I think that some of these private investors will want to be involved in supporting the university. I know that some few persons are for the running of the university. Now the government angle is to see how we can get the government more involved. Happily for us, the present governor of River State is an alumnus of our university. And I think we can also, get to do 1 or 2 projects, even before he concludes his first term, in office. Something can be done. Like, when he was there, these are the major things that he did for us, even though he's already supporting the university in several ways.
Thank you, Prof.
Reaping from the wealth of our products, which we are talking about, alumni relation, that some of our products are far bigger than the institution. How do we make them to identify? We were thinking about also part of industry coming and also working with the university. But something is very important. As a vice chancellor, as I came in, the visitor then had described the university as dead and buried. I knew I had something to do. And we talked about bringing it back. What was it? The university seemed to have lost credibility. And so, it became important that we needed to build the good reputation so that goodwill will follow. That is where now management or present management will have a lot of work to do. There are people you cannot train. They don't belong to the university system, but they have been put in the university. And so managing them, of course, what is corruption? Corruption is putting what is not right in the right place. It's not a question of money we are talking about. We said those in engineering talk about the material is corrupted. Maybe you had cement, then you had sand inside. So that one will break it. So there are people who actually, and council will have to help the management to push the system so that we have university. That people will now say, this is the university I can deal with. So I'm talking about building good reputation so that good will follow. That's one of the things. We just have, until we now had university material, we didn't know who, but they told that it was true. It was technology that helped us. Now the lecturers who decided not to bring what we call continuous assessment, because they were trading with marks, I didn't bother anybody. But Senate agreed that continuous assessment will be brought in first before exam will start. And by technology, I knew those professors or those who had not brought the thing in and were able to do that. So I'm thinking that by helping the council will have to make sure we have enough to now regulate and make sure that we can have a university. That reputation, goodwill, I think, will follow. Thank you very much.
The most important thing in the university development is funding. That's what I'm going to concentrate on funding. Now, there are 2 areas that I want to mention, 3 areas I want to mention. First, government. It's a public university. Number 2, NDDC. Number 3, offshore grants. We can make money from this thing. When I was busy, I approached Dr. Odili, who was visitor, on endowment. Every budget, the chairman of can run the university. He agreed. But unfortunately, it was not implemented. I'm going to give you a challenge. Any budget, any day, every time government makes a budget, let them make out money, put it in a deposit, collect, choose certain banks not only one man, spread these things over years, the capital can produce the interest that can run university forever. States, 26% of every budget to be allocated to education, are they doing it? I have gone through the Nigerian government percent, and it happened when Odoye was there. Every year to education, the university will not have any problems. The next one is NDDC. I have private chapters in my vice chancellor. That NDDC made this our university, they can assist our university, which they were doing before this time. That's what is offshore grants. I also discussed with, I don't think there's an offshore grant. If there's a committee to be set up to search for offshore grant, that's our, the committee will be set up to search for offshore grant. They are floating everywhere, and other universities can also benefit. Thank you very much.
You know, the tripartite mandate of the recently, when they added entrepreneurial education, has always been teaching, research, and community development. I'm going to concentrate in terms of these internal quality assurance on teaching, which by implication it involves learning. And when lecturers approach teaching on a big bang basis, in other words, they won't do anything. Many lecturers won't do anything in many universities. When they declare that there will be exam in 3 weeks' time, they now go to the place and bank the students. That is not how training happens. What we are supposed to be doing is to ensure that they acquire knowledge and skill. And these come by precept, line by line, as the Bible process. In other words, these two things happen incrementally, not as a big bang. This approach creates all the problems, and there are 3 problems. I'm just going to mention just about 3 of them. The first one is that it crashes the confidence of students, because students are not acquiring knowledge, and indeed, they are not acquiring skill. It just cannot happen under those circumstances. Number 2 increases employability deficit. So they will not be able to access, because when you go, students, graduates went for an interview. The person didn't know what to do. Of course, how do you expect to be employed? And of course, it creates an incredible lot of frustration on the part of our graduates. Which is why many graduates today say that education is a scam, because they can't get employed. Even as bad as our system is, people still get employed if they are good. Across Nigerian universities, it does appear to me that just about every university has this 75% attendance for students to qualify to do exam. What that achieves is that, have we ever asked ourselves, when students are not attending lectures, what are they doing with their time? They are doing incredible things. Some of them are getting involved in courtism. And then the ladies are actually serving as wives to some of their classmates and people outside the town, because that's all they have time to do. I've had to counsel students. Generally speaking, number 1, part of the kind of employment we are making today is based largely on political considerations. Because the bottom line, apart from graduate students, the real essence of our university today is to train a bulk of these undergraduates. And unless we get it right, we'll keep telling the same stories. It will be shameful. I mean, if you look at the percentage of our student graduates who are making wealth, very small. I think the dragnet has become so large. Of course, our lecturers, some of them for sure, are getting involved in all kinds of situations. They are doing extortion from students. They are looking for. So it's important that we deal with these things. Vice chancellors must take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We must understand one thing, I just want to start from this premise, that governance in the past is not the same as governance of the present. Because quite a number of things have changed. I mean, Professor Edo was talking about the complexity of the university system. Also, the panelists here also mentioned it. And these complexities are based on several factors. And we're talking about the massification of education, for instance. You have so many students now with different needs. You talk about evolving technologies, for instance. We're not talking about AI in the past. Now we are in it. Even some people have not really come to the level of saying, embracing it in our dear country. Whether we like it or not, it is with us. So it's not whether AI is good or not, it's about how to responsibly deploy AI to achieve our aims in universities. Even the organization of the data, it was not until recently that we got to do that. Again now, things are going back. But that is not the subject for today. Data and quality assurance, very key, very important. And you go to some places, because of the lip services we pay to data, you find that even data within the different sectors of that institution, we vary. We must be big on data. No establishment in the world today can thrive without data. And we operate with data. So if you want our universities to run and run effectively well, honestly, the governing council and management must work in such a way that data must be generated. Apart from being generated, we must organize. Of course, you have generation of your data, you are organizing your data. You must analyze your data and take your decisions based on it. Let's look back at where we're coming from. Look at the first generation universities, for instance. And you have it back when I started as a University College of London. One thing that universities have an issue by design, by default, are quality assurance institutions. Yeah. They can quality assure themselves. That's why I know that I was funny when you asked Professor about the internal quality assurance procedure. I mean, you talk about quality assurance, external, internal. The most important of the two is internal. If you get it right at the internal level, every other thing is just, just fall in place. Because the external quality assurance which we do at the LEC, or when I was in the LEC, forward. Honestly, we must be big on data. We must get our data in place, we must organize them, we must analyze them and use them. Because there's no point analyzing your data and not using them. That means every decision you are taking, like I say, just guiding against repetition, is to ensure that our decisions are data-based.
Good management and council, we need peace. If there is no peace, they will not function. If you have peace, then everybody will respect each other, and you maintain your lane, and the university will move forward. When you have a university where council will feel that they will be council and they can run the university to the vice chancellor, it does not work. If you have a university where the vice chancellor thinks that himself alone can go ahead and do anything, it will not work. Again, when you have a vice chancellor, you also have a chancellor. And chancellor's job is only on the day of convocation. That's why I find it. On the day of convocation, when he should function. If the chancellor comes in on the day of convocation, and the vice chancellor or the council feels that the chancellor has no duty because they're only coming as a ceremonial function, there will be no collaboration, there will be problem. There are so many people out there in town who want to collaborate with you. I can tell you that. So many people out there in town who want to collaborate with you. There are so many companies here. Some promised us so many things, from where to build stadium, from where to build hostels, just because we don't give them honorary degree of doctor of this. But when the time came to do that, even government cancelled it and said you didn't have our permission. So, and again, you have to be sincere. Like a lot of us, for example, and you say, Ajib cannot go ahead with what they're doing unless they see you behind. How do they see you? The alumni want to collaborate with you. That is why they built a house, yeah, I call it the alumni house, and they have their executive. But when we are not ready to collaborate with them, and so we have so many people in that university who are ready to do what they are supposed to do. And once you always talk with your advisors and things are going, it's not the kind of project that comes to work every day. When you have a campus, you're not able to run that campus. And you got to 7 campuses and call them satellite campuses. It doesn't work. Every campus you bring is a university. I've made this point before. And again, they are talking about students themselves. They need respect. That's how they will respect you. They need respect. If you go, you want to go and make sure that you want to elect your own brother as a relation as student union president, your problem has started. If there's any president of student union that doesn't want to work with you, it's his business. If I have no work, it's not working with you. Thank you.
The first presenter made the mention of a school that had a UME cutoff of 200, but because of reduction in admission, brought it down to 160. I just want to ask, for a university, what should be the priority? Is it quantity of students or the quality of students?
I have a question. I always worry on equal parallels. Sometimes I have this feeling that the model of higher education we run will never work. How do we ensure that given the realities in which we exist, that we can implement a model that is autarkic and asymmetrical, in which case it responds to the local realities? How do we make that work?
So like Kasibo was clear and straight on the powers of council. For one of things he said to me that made me laugh was that when he said that council can do anything under the sun apart from making a man a woman. He said so. And why did I laugh? Because I had a private joke with the vice chancellor this morning on a similar issue. And what was that joke? He said to me, he said, Chancellor, sir, I think we need this thing now. I said, VC, no, this one I don't think we can do this. He said, no, once we have the approval. And I said, I hope you will not ask me to make laws about LGBT here one day. And we laughed over. He said, no, that I didn't have to go that far. What I'm making is that the keynote speaker was clear. Don't let us confuse issues here. It says council meeting should be at least once in a quarter. I've been told not to come to my office, only once in a quarter I'll come. Let me say, like your moderator has said in the beginning, we are very busy people on the council. To the glory of God, I'm still in very active legal practice. So this is a distraction for me. It is service and a lot of sacrifice for me for my time. So I haven't got the time to come and sit here. He can tell you how regular I am here. So this talk about just leave us alone, former vice chancellors, leave me and vice chancellor alone. To do our work. We understand ourselves. We will have not had issues, and we don't hope to have issues. But let me also say to you very clearly, to answer your question directly, sir, I wasn't going to make any comments. I had made my judgment about what was going on, about the collaboration. It was obvious to me. But I tried to keep on. Professor Achille, who is like a father to me, said I should answer. We don't make laws. Some are placed to make laws. I'm working on the law that I have handed over to me as pro-chancellor. And like I said, for the police concerning the immodest, I'm a senior advocate of Nigeria. So I know the law. I know the law very well. I will only implement what I find in the law. I can't even make laws. Like he said, keynote speaker can give evidence on that, because he even has how many votes with which I became NBA president. But let me also tell you, sir, that that was a landmark victory. What is the law? Go to House of Assembly, go to a visitor, and go and change the law. But the law is changed. I will implement what I have found there.
Where I said quantity over quality. I think I went to university not too long ago. So they have, at times people ask me, or people are not familiar with the Nigerian university system, that even though University of Ibadan is the oldest, but I tell people that it's not the biggest. Even in the Southwest, we have a university in the Southwest that was established, when was it, 2011. They have more students than University of Ibadan as we speak. Yeah, and it was established when President Jonathan was the president. So I think it depends on what you want. Because the Dean of Faculty of Science told me that there is so much crowd in the prelim chemistry class. And meanwhile, we are still very conservative. We don't admit too many students. I think the NUC allows us to admit about 8,000 students on our graduates. Then we impose on ourselves a ceiling of about 4,500. Because the idea is that when Baba was in UL, they used to have accommodation throughout the 3 years or 4 years. But we don't have that luxury again. But what university has been doing for the past 20 years is to say that new students, in order level, all of them should be accommodated. And also the final year students should also be accommodated. I mean, we have just about 8,000 bed spaces. So if we are going to accommodate 8,000 students, of course we have some universities that are not even residential, in which case all students live off campus. So that is why in fact, some people say we are promoting Boko Haram, but we don't want to admit students. But our capacity is limited, severely limited. I also want students people to come to University of Ibadan when the facilities are so limited and there is pressure. So I somebody let's go to distance learning. So because of the vision, I didn't set up the vision. The vision is that we want to be one class. And when I finished in University of Ibadan, I had second class honors, upper division, 2-1, not the first class. I applied to Colorado School of Mines. They said that I was not eligible. Colorado School of Mines said, it was a first class. Even though I didn't have first class, it doesn't mean that my life is any sort of further. So the university has to decide what you want. And like I said, I was surprised that I was admitting candidates who scholars and so on. So I had to call some of my friends and they confirmed. For the Senate, they said that they don't that you don't send out if you think your materials are good enough. Go and publish it. Then you can be at university bookstore, students can go and buy it. So I think there must be internal quality control. NUC cannot, you have 311 or so universities now.
Thank you for so much our panelists, former vice chancellors, and our former ES of NUC for bringing insights, their wealth of experience to bear on the subject we discussed. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thanks.
Policy and investment strategies for university advancement. Last week, it was announced that a billionaire hedge fund owner named Chris Rokos donated 190 million pounds to the University of Cambridge. And he's a graduate of Oxford. If you know anything about Oxford and Cambridge, they are rivals. On the one side, fundraising is to get you immediate impact, raise money to do projects that will bring immediate impact, deals on friends that you have raised. Whereas investment is like planting a tree that will yield fruits in the future. So what is fundraising? We know philanthropy because we do it in our churches, wherever we are, communities. It is seeking additional external resources. What are you raising money for? You raise money based on strategic plans that you have prioritized things that are to be done now or later. So this process of soliciting and gathering voluntary contributions of money and other resources by requesting donations from individuals, businesses, charitable foundations or government is what fundraising does. People give to people they know, they trust, they care about. If you're ever going to get money from anyone, these are things to look for. You can't write letter and people will give you money. And people who gave before are likely to give again. And gifts are to be used transparently and well accounted for. Identify potential donors. If you don't identify them, there's no fundraising that can take place. So identify them, put them in a pool, and then qualify them. To qualify means you determine if the individual or the organization is a viable prospect for you to approach for support. You have to be telling a story. And I love the story of RSU, the pioneer state university in Nigeria. That's a good story to start. So where are you now? Are you still leading? Are you still in front? There must be a story that is coming out. I love the story. We wanted this campus. We needed this project. It was done. It was done. We have a track record. We're developing along a certain path. We're making progress. We're building a reputation for this state. We are competing, not with state universities. We are competing with universities in different places. Endowment. They're not just putting money in one thing. It's a long-time investment. The thing is that when they feel good about it, they will tell their fellow wealthy people, this is what they did. They have been thanking me for this thing. And these people will now say, I also want them to thank me, so what can I do? So it's good for you to thank as a way of publicizing that. They've talked about data collection and analysis. I totally agree with it. And there are many types of vehicles for fundraising. And this is where if you don't have an operation, you can't even go into. But we know that online fundraising is about the easiest you can do now, especially with alumni. Complexes have hotels that can generate money, and then the profit from that, a certain percentage is given into running the university. Hedge funds, global equities, these bonds that federal government is selling. The university can also go and buy some of this, that there's not much expertise available in terms of this skill of fundraising. So we can write good, wonderful proposals, but we don't have the patience and the skill to write a grant proposal. You have to publish or perish. So everybody who is young who has to publish and become a professor. Whereas that's the time you should actually work on the ground. You have the energy, you have the vision, you have the ideas, and these two should be done together. So I wish Rivers State University very well as you take this step. Thank you.
I'm standing on behalf of Femi Awe, who promised to be here, but for some national exigencies, he was called to the presidency. So let's just go to the executive summary and let me just look at it. Say, Nigeria, which is what we all know, Nigerian public universities face structural funding challenge that cannot be resolved by incremental increases in government subvention. The 15th Governing Council retreat of Rivers State University, convened at this moment, is a genuine institutional reckoning, examining how to reposition public university for relevance, financial sustainability, and graduate quality in an economy that is rapidly outpacing the curriculum frameworks that govern it, by which Nigerian universities can simultaneously close their funding gap. And we also have entrepreneurs that we can serve. So the ecosystem, very few universities or very few locations have the kind of advantage, the competitive advantage that we have. What is the value proposition of this university to our environment. Marine, River State, we have quite a lot. The role of alumni, to keep on, and I remember the sing song of the Pro Chancellor is how do we elevate alumni relations. The various faculties, meet the town to know what is their need, what are the areas, where are the gaps that we have identified, so that we can create a curriculum around it and sort out the marketplace. So when you're doing that, your graduates become employable because you originally created those ideas. How did this AI, it came out from the classroom. And then the market saw it. And then they are running with it. So it is very, very important. So what is the value proposition of River State University? That again comes up. They said we need to create, the first is geographical and sectoral proximity. We have all it takes to define our value around our geography. There is institutional longevity and alumni depth. That's talking about alumni relations. I'm happy that one of the anchor, the fulcrum that we are going to change the narrative is here. Because once we can leverage that kind of technology, we'll get the alumni relations right, easier. The fourth is, we've talked about regulatory and policy environment of River State. On a specific legislative regulatory agenda, we've talked about, go ahead. So key strategic pillars. He has identified 7 strategic pillars for institutional transformation.
Thank you.
So we have our panelists, what you've heard, what you're doing in RSU and how it aligns with what you've heard now, and especially how are we going to take this our gown to the town.
The River State Advancement and Linkages Center, we have been very proactive. First of all, what we have now is a typical classical method of advancement, which follows certain models: alumni relations, fundraising, public relations, partnerships, and linkages. It's combined. It's a classical, that's a normal method for most Nigerian universities. A lot of our students outside the country. And so, if you have that kind of engagement through our alumni for donors, mentors, in fact, the university management is in brand ambassadors. The recent alumni relations through Sin Forest, Dr. Kobo, Ramsinwa, NDBC Commissioner of Finance. These are brand ambassadors who are trying to reach out to governing council and management and trying to reactivate the professional chairs. And of course, some of the recent visits by the governing council and management to Abara campus and Ahoda, the king of Ahoda promised, in fact, donated some buildings. The Abara chief promised also to assist the university. These are ways endowments are taking place. We have the university hub as well for training. The entrepreneurship center is also involved in this. You recall that we did breakfast academy meeting where we emphasized commercialization of our research. And of course, we brought Gen 1 from Finland. And that helped to showcase our patents. The last speaker talked about research. We must interact with the community. And that was why the university was built, to solve the problems of this region. The problems of this region. Integration, environmental stewardship, etc. But the most important is that we must go to the community and find out what their needs. Let me also say this, that in the course of my handling the unit, on the floor of Senate, somebody mentioned something very important, and it has to do with reputation. It has to do with reputation. Now, the students, I've heard people talk about that, we train, we must try as much as possible to interact with the students.
So that's diversification. So narrowing it down to revenue diversification means that your budgetary allocation is not enough to sustain you. Therefore, you must put up the creative thinking cap to say, where are the areas that we can make money as a university aside that of the government funding? We identified quick areas. We have, I don't know how many you, of course, as lecturers, we have gone to Babcock University. It's a private university, but it's a well-run university, maybe because the Americans, still have the quality assurance that we have been talking about. It's a very serious business there. They have bread, they have everything. And those things generate a lot of money for them, provided they didn't run it by the public servants. They gave it out to experts to drive the revenue. So there are so many things that we can do. Your distance learning, our continuing education, it's, revenue diversification. So aside from budget, any other thing that you do that will, add additional, is diversification. Is that capital chases value. When they see value, okay, capital will be thrown at. As a banker, we don't give money to startups because we don't know whether you're going to. But now, be doing well, we will chase you because we have seen value. That's just, what I can explain. So, the major incubators that have sold Nigerian universities, government universities, 4 of them, if you aggregate their product from that computer science, what they call it, what they sold to Silicon Valley is over $3 billion. You see the result will come in exponential level. And the town, will be coming to meet you. So if you raise the value, you see, I'm still happy on value. If you raise the value, those Ikoku certifications for Ikoku people, once you go into maybe advertise what university, there's a way. There are people who craft fundraising letters. There are people who craft that letter. It's not everybody that can do that. Once we are able to advertise such kind of programs, you will make so much money. Because today, people are not talking about degrees anymore. All these ones we are talking, nobody is talking about degrees. They're talking about certifications. And certification is very practical. So, that's the way to go. That is the way to go. Thank you.
Three of my vice chancellors are here who can attest to the fact that we have leveraged a network of alumni, and I'm still leveraging on them. I will begin from when I was head of department. I had the opportunity of functioning as head of department under Professor Kobe. And whilst I was there, Professor Koima was my dean. And one very important thing I did was to bring alumni to support the faculty. And that alumni at the time was the provost of Federal University, Federal Polytechnic in Ekiti, of alumni and friends of the university. So there's a lot to do with alumni. I also want to say that as Director of Entrepreneurship, a lot is going on in entrepreneurship as a way of supporting fundraising, supporting revenue generation in the university. Still on that network, We have just made some submissions today to a local government to support our activity that will help generate funds for us. We're believing that in the next few days it will come to play and we'll begin to reap from what alumni is doing. Fortunately, the person who is spearheading this told me that he will do anything to ensure that we get what we submitted today. The reason I was not here early in the day was to ensure that that went through, and it was through alumni linkage. And I know that aside these ones, there are several other things that the Entrepreneurship Development Center is doing to support the university. I had to do a reiteration before a panel of council on how we are supporting the income generation for the university, ranging from doing customized uniforms for students, lab coats, textbooks, and several other things. I know that they will continuously yield fruits in the nearest future.
Now, in terms of the discussion that we've been having here, there's one thing to bring in income. There is another thing also to see how the income that has come in is prudently used. If you save costs, that's also a plus, you know, in part of the discussions that we are having. And so technology will always help us, you know, to do that. We are seeing the numbers grow from when we came in to now. You know, we've seen the numbers grow. The number of students are also growing. Facilities are not expanding the way, you know, the number of students are growing. That means we need to leverage technology to be able to handle all of that gap. And in the wisdom of the management, they've also approved virtual learning now. So we're now going to be having hybrid, you know, learning, where some students can actually, you know, use virtual learning. So the pressure on physical facility will naturally and gradually begin to reduce, and the school needs to make that deliberate, you know, investment in virtual infrastructure, because that's where all the institutions are going. I mean, as our PG school building, but the value it creates, you know, far outweighs what we can actually imagine, because these people over the years have been able to not just create, you know, there we are taught to create value, you know, to capture it, you know, and also to deliver it. And so you need to look at how you can leverage technology in all of these dimensions. We are bringing to fore. The last time that we had, you know, the alumni discussions, we said we want to partner with the Faculty of Law around law tech. As far as law tech is concerned in Nigeria, our organization is in the forefront. How do we leverage, you know, partnering with the faculty so that we can move our students forward? The same thing with health tech now as well. How do we, because nearly everything that you do now, there's a technology component, you know, to it. For people that are studying mass comm and the related courses, we do cinematography. So the animation, we've got studio, all right? We've got, a standard studio that we can use to do anything. We've got animators that do anything, cartoons, you know, apart from the courses we do for learning and all of that. So these are things that these students can actually come in and begin to benefit. These are immediate things that we are offering on the table. We should be able to tell people that, look, if you give us 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion, as the case may be, one of the things we'll prioritize is energy forward for our university community. If we have that solar farm and we are completely off-grid, schools are going off-grid now, and we plan it and we go off-grid, I don't imagine the school spending less than 100 million every month, you know, on power, when you combine PhD and diesel. So if you are able to do that, that is what 100 million that you are going to save. So it's a high priority area that we need to look at, because once we solve power issues, because some of the things why some things cannot even work is power. Yeah. Some researchers, some people want to be in the lab till night, some things they want to do, You know, they tell you that school power, you know, has gone, you know, and they don't have what it takes to sustain that. So we need to look at that. Thank you.
To be part of the fundraising for a supposed 10 billion naira for the university. And I sat in the discussion room and I said to myself, you will remember, these guys are still far from the truth. What would make Dangote or Lakija or even Shell to give RSU 10 billion? Why? Why should I give it to you? I can only give it to you because, one, I trust that you use it very, very well, and I will see the value that you deliver. Or two, I have people within the system who are friendly, and because of them, I can then give the RSU. Those, of course, especially the Yoruba boys within the oil companies, will go back and whisper to their brothers and say, do you have a good proposal that can add value and income? That was how your Marine Institute was taken away to Uniben, because there was no connection between RSU and Shell. How do you do that? You sit in your team and you say, look, what proposals can we send? You send them 1 year in advance. And then those become conversations in the grants and donations. And so when you appear, all you need is to make a call to one of your alumni who sits in the board, and things will start going. That this council has said they want to take a different path, but they shouldn't stop at just this engagement. We should come out with a clear plan, clear strategy, and that must be monitored. So what you're doing, this is the starting point. This should be channeled into a clear strategy, the objectives you want to achieve, and it has to be monitored. Some of the things we should be looking at for is contract and sponsored research. So most of the research I see here are not. I teach also in the university, by the way. I teach program in the university. Okay? Some of the things I see is that research is focused on just publish to get a professorship. It's okay, but that's not the end to it. So we should be looking at topics, things that we can do. People outside will say, oh, this is fundamental, this is good. A lot of work is being done. It's just that we don't just say, okay, publish it and get process. But what about commercializing it, which is the value we're talking about, with them, where they can earmark your university as a corporate training center for specific disciplines. Naming some of these our halls in RSU after prominent people and say, for hall A, what is called ABC? Call it Zik Hall. Azikiwe Hall, call it Elimelu Hall, call it Dangote Hall. Then they will give you 1 million naira or 10 million naira or that kind of money. Go to the football field. People like football. Call the football field after somebody. They'll give you something. Call the library that we have after me. I'll give you money.
Get closer to us. I have a good idea of much of what you have said here. If you add them, like Dr. Lowe said, I've repeated at council meetings. I said, look, I left university over 40 years ago in England. They still write to me, on my birthday, I'll get happy birthday, Kichuku Wale, from the admin office. And it hits me. Every day I get invitations. Last week as a program in university, I was invited. I don't really need this. And listening to you, we can see competence and experience. That's why we set up this program, to hear from people like you. As for you, say for it, I know you. You made me a superstar as a president. They ran our MD conference when I was president, and we never said something like that before. If you were listening to him, you think he's just bluffing. No, I've experienced it. So please, listen. You keep track of them. So that we don't lose you. We need you. Thank you.
And we brought benefits to this university. And you also brought benefits. You have the IPAC program, where 20 of our academic staff had fully funded scholarship to the United Kingdom. 15 masters, 5 PhDs. The director of ICT, I think he's here.
Yes, sir.
He was one of the figures. We had 2 people who had Commonwealth scholarships, do PhD. Unfortunately, they decided to abscond. Then, let me again challenge my thing before. Now that you are highly digital, you can get benefits. Go to your, even AI. I've said it before. There are offshore grants to universities. We used to get it from Vitality, like this HIPAC. Like the one I told you before, we use it offshore grant. There's another one which I told the chairman before. We had $80 million grant by Arab Bank.
Asking probably is putting the right person in the right place. You don't go send somebody who frowns to go and ask for somebody. Yeah, you don't put a frowning person in your reception. You just send away people. So you must know who to put in any office. Today I learned a lot from your lecture, which I'm going to put into my personal life, not even university, to begin to leverage my own network. So thank you, and thank you, Dr. Luo, for delivering that lecture on behalf of our other speaker who was unable to come here. It's like as if these days all vice chancellors are digital vice chancellors. It's like a new acronym.